Da 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 da. What's my good cheer? Welcome, welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes. Get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never popped into one of my lives before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And oh my goodness, was it ever an inside day today? I did everything to motivate myself, and it was just like, oh my goodness. You know, those days where you just have to give yourself a butt kick just to get the dishes done, or just even to get yourself out of bed. Grateful that has not been a problem for me in, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to say a good dozen years. A good dozen years. I am such a good sleeper. And my heart really goes out there to people who do struggle with their sleep, because I know what it takes away from in your life. My sister has always had chronic sleeping issues, and she's always had those really high stress jobs where you really have to have your noggin about you in order to get the job done properly and to bring a team in, right? And when you don't have that energy, oh my goodness, lots of times your work suffers, and then your life suffers too, because you tend to take your work home with you, don't you? And there isn't anything worse than not having the energy to do what you want to do, even if it's just the basics. Today, I don't really think it's anything like that. I think it's just a change of seasons. There are just some days in the year that it just impacts us a little bit differently, a little bit harder sometimes, maybe a little bit more reminiscent, because for me, I find today has just been a little bit like that, in kind of doing a checklist of all the things that I've accomplished in the past year, some of those hiccups and those own wrenches that I've thrown into my own engine, and reflecting a little bit about how different my life could have been this year if I had made different choices. Sometimes we don't make the best choices for ourselves, but sometimes we do. Sometimes we do make the best choices for ourselves, but they just in the moment, they don't look like good choices because we are moving, or we're dragging our butt, right? And when we're dragging our butt, usually we're dragging our butt because we are being motivated or being asked to make a little bit of movement, and because we don't like change, right? Because change is difficult. Change is a little bit weary in the fact that we don't know where we're going to land, because in change, usually we can't dictate where we're going to land. All we can do is ride those waves, adapt and conquer, whistle while you work. Just allow yourself to get through it, knowing that, tomorrow's another day, right? Tomorrow's another opportunity to get it right. If we got it wrong, tomorrow's another day to drum up that little bit of energy that maybe you didn't have yesterday and you couldn't figure it out. And then you have a good sleep. Yeah, put in a good 8 hours sleep, and you wake up the next day and you can forget even about yesterday, because today feels so much different. Maybe it feels better. Maybe in that comparison, you can see that there really isn't anything different about today except about how you feel about it, because your problems are still there. Those wrenches are still being thrown into it. You're still juggling, but maybe you don't feel like you're really dragging your butt. That maybe yesterday, even though you were feeling kind of odd, that you could feel the mix up, that little tornado in your life, or just in general with, right? Sometimes being highly sensitive, right? Being an empath, that we can kind of pick up on what's going on around us. And we wear that for ourselves. We wear that as if it belongs to us, right? We pick these things up along the way and we beat ourselves up, right? For how things are going when really we're just kind of holding things for other people, right? And that's a good thing to do. Lots of the times we're being asked to stay away from what's difficult, what's going to put those wrenches into our lives, those difficulties into our lives. But we have to appreciate in feeling that way that maybe we can feel good that we've held a little bit for somebody else, right? That even if we're just sitting there and listening to somebody else's grumble and what's going wrong in their day, or be a little bit of a shoulder for somebody just to cry on. Not you're not even having to do anything or say anything, but just being there in somebody else's, not necessarily misery, but maybe in those feelings that are still residue from the day before, or you've made a difficult choice, and now you find your somebody in your life or in your own life is going through that mix, right? And has all those agitations and don't recognize the fact that they made a choice, and because they made their choices those balls are rolling, and it's just a little bit of uncomfortableness in the moment, when in actuality, right, we don't know where we're going to land in that. We just made a choice and that ball is starting to roll, and we can drag ourselves kicking and screaming, right? Grumbling and complaining or blaming it on somebody else, right? And just take it for what it is and play with it a little bit, right? Whistle while you work, because usually that's what it is. Usually that's all it is just work. It's just movement. It's just change. And that's exactly what it is. It's change. And we're just don't like the unknown, because change is always something new, something we haven't experienced before. And there is no going back. Once you've made that choice, you have to stick with it. Otherwise, you're considered a giver upper, right? For myself, I don't know if it's a little bit of self infliction, or maybe it's just in that pursuit of something better, that I can feel that there's something better. And there's always something better than the moment that we're in. There always is. But again, right? Sometimes we need to be dragged, kicking and screaming, and usually, right, there's nobody around us at that point to help motivate us or inspire us, right? Be that example for us. And so we have to do that for ourselves, right? We have to own up for the choice that we made, and we have to put that action into it, right? We have to be our own instigator, our own cheerleader, our own motivator, and that example that comes of it for others to say, oh my goodness, it's not too difficult today. It was a day, oh my goodness, it was a day of dragging my butt for anything. But I thought, you know what? I feel like dragging my butt today. Why am I chasing down? Why am I, right? Whipping that, not going to say, well, maybe I will say dead horse, because that's what it felt like today. And I thought that is kind of, right, unkind to do to myself. I'm going on a trip. And as I see the pieces fall together and everything, my system is feeling better. And in that system feeling better, I'm having that, that's what this is, right? I'm having that release. And in that release, it makes me want to crash. It's like, when you're in the marathon and you're going doing those loops around the marathon, you're giving it everything you absolutely have. But the moment you go over that finish line, and whether you're first, right, somewhere's in the middle or at the end, you're still going to have that same release of, oh my goodness, I did it. It's over. And right, sometimes we hit the pavement and we just lay there for a few minutes. Sometimes people are cheering for us and they come and pick us up. And in the very last of our energy, we did a little bit of a what do you call that, parade run around, right? And we got people holding us up in that. But in that celebration and the release of getting that done, there is some sense of crash in that. For myself, that crash usually happens when I come home from my trip that I do every September, because it, for myself, it takes a lot of work. And if you could see behind me, you could see a little bit. I got a big stack of camping gear. I had to try and minimalize it as much as I could, make it as small as it could so it could fit in my vehicle. Double checking list to make sure I've got everything right, make sure the funds are there, that everything is just kind of checked. And when I realized, oh my goodness, I did it. And a month ago, if you had asked me if I was going to be doing this trip this September and I'm leaving this Sunday, nobody's going to hear or see from me for 2 weeks. And I'm going to have to say it's going to be absolutely amazing. But in that crash of getting the trip done early, and thank goodness I got it early, because I can recheck my list and make sure that I'm not missing things, right? Like the extra cameras, and right, that I'm my favorite things like my eggs and everything. Today I put them in a little egg crate and I taped it up and everything. It's all set, ready to go into my cooler, fill up my cooler with all my frozen stuff just to make sure that it stays fresh for a couple of days. Like, I'm so pleased that my trip came together the way it did, and it shouldn't have even happened, in all honesty. But sometimes if you just make that choice, right? You make that choice and you just give her, you just do everything you possibly can, right? That nobody could say that you didn't try everything to make it happen. And sometimes, more often than not, if you don't quit, if you don't stop, it turns out even better than what you had hoped it would be, right? We're not there yet. It hasn't even started yet, but I'm prepared, right? And that's a good thing. You don't hike Mount Everest without being properly prepared. And sometimes in that preparedness, right? It is. I feel good about that. And today I thought, oh my goodness, we're going to take a rest. It's been a crazy few weeks, right? In my specific family, and I think for lots of people in their lives and in their loved ones' lives, there has been a lot of crazy town going on, and we're not out of it yet, because we're coming out of it and we're immediately going into something else. And for this little bit of odd time this year for me, that feeling of that feeling of it's done, right? That I can just relax and ride those waves now because everything I possibly could do is done. And as far as I see, this trip is happening. And that doesn't mean that it will happen. There's always those wrenches. Life comes in sometimes and just kicks us in a butt. And the next thing you know, we're pivoting and changing and scrambling and adapting, and conquering, right? And we have to do that because that's just life, isn't it? Right? And that's how we got here. That's why after hundreds of thousands of years that we are still here. This line, my line, your bloodline, like it made it here. And that itself is an absolute miracle. So we're just all dragging our butts and everything because of these little decisions that we're making now that kind of, right, give us a little bit of opportunity to try something new, to adapt and conquer sometimes, keep us resilient for the next generation, for the next stage of evolution. And that's what we're feeling, you guys. We're feeling that change. And it's just not our change, it's our neighbor's change. And it's the change of the people in our neighborhood, in our city, in our countries, and in social media. We're just this close from everybody. And so we're just picking up everything, and like I said, we just don't see the scary town, crazy town of our own lives, like our own lives. We're feeling the crazy town for everything that's out there because we live in that day and age where that we're that close, right? Hello, dear. Thank you so much, everybody. Aw, thank you. I'm built different. I think we're all built different. This is what evolution is. Oh my goodness. If you'd asked me a half a dozen years ago, I would have been totally blank to any of these ideas, right? And sometimes we're allowed to come to the surface, and if we can partner with ourselves, right? Understanding that nobody is perfect, and then just try to be the example for each other. Oh my goodness, what could we do? Right? What could we do in this world that we're moving into now? It's in our choices, right? Change is coming, and I sure would like to be in that mix of being that example for others that we can kind of move along with that change without so much pain, frustration, worry, right? Stress, that we're able to go to bed each night and have a good 8 hours sleep and wake up the next day knowing, right, the day that we were all stressed out about yesterday doesn't mean anything today because we're into something totally different now because we made a choice, right? And if you're anything like me, you commit to your choices. This is how I get things done. This is how I'm taking off on this trip that I do every single year, this sabbatical that I disappear and do every single year. That would not happen without me putting that work in. And I know I put that work in because today I could say that I just did not want to move. I did not want to move. I got little things done here and there, but I just, right? I gave myself that permission that I wasn't going to beat the dead horse, right? If I needed to crash a little bit, I'm going to call that a little bit of celebration. But it makes me curious because the way I feel today is usually the way I feel in that sense of accomplishment when I come home from my trip. So it makes me curious, right? When I'm out on my trip, how am I going to feel when I come home, right? Maybe it's just the reminder for myself to have something in place so I don't have, right, that big crash. Because that's what it is. You know, it came from a lesson I got a few years ago. It was a story about when the Depression hit and all the Wall Street crashed and everything, right? And there were people out there that were just being created into multimillionaires and everything. And then at the end of it, they felt that, oh, it's done. But because they hit the pinnacle of their goals and their dreams, they didn't have the next plan in place. They didn't have the next goal to chase after and everything. They thought that was it. They had accomplished what they were meant to accomplish, and they crashed totally in their life because they didn't have the next plan in the place, the next direction in mind, right? We're always moving. We're always moving. We always move forward. It's one of the very first things that I woke up to, right? Just set your goals, right? Go after your dreams. Life is going to kick you in the butt. We're going to throw the own wrenches into our lives. But during that course of doing all of that, magnificent insights are going to come in to our lives, and we're going to be able to make better choices. Not even just that, we're going to find other people like us that want to make a little bit of movement themselves, right? Possibly be the example for me because I'm always looking for examples. I am grateful along the way that I have been able to bump into a few people, right? That making their own movement, and I don't know how they do it because some of these people they got big families and big businesses and big scary life, and who am I to crash when I'm just getting ready for a vacation where there are people juggling big things, not just for their lives but for our lives too, eh? That's our leadership. That's our leadership out there, and that's the truth. Okay, you guys, I just wanted to grab a card. Let's just come in and thank you so much. Hi, Eugene. I'm built peace. Peace. Yeah, I gave myself permission to be happy. It's important. People don't realize that part of our evolution is to partner with ourselves. We're all about, you hear all the time, kill the ego, wipe it out. But you know what? If you can partner with yourself, and I know it's unfortunate because lots of times we don't care for ourselves. Sometimes that's just projected, but, if we really want to move forward, if we want to keep going with our bloodlines for another 100,000 years, 200,000 years, however long it takes, we don't give up. We adapt and conquer, right? We ride the waves. We're all in the same storm, people. We're all in the same storm. We're just all in different boats. Some of us are grabbing onto logs and floating out in the middle of the ocean on our logs. Some of them are in fishing boats. Some of them are in lifeguard boats. Some of them are dancing on cruise ships. But it's all the same storm, right? And in our choices, well, maybe we'll luck out and have a little bit better residency in our floaties. Right? I'd much rather be dancing on a cruise ship than floating around in the middle of the ocean clinging to a log, I tell you. Right? But it's in that never giving up. That's adapting and conquer. It's singing while you work. It's partnering with yourself, and it's partnering with others. But it's sometimes hard, isn't it? Right? Because sometimes it's hard just to manage ourselves and then to be able to, right, be that example for others. And, lots of people go into it with good intent, but it doesn't always work out the way we want to. But when it does, oh my goodness, and you have that little bit of a crash, that little bit of, right? Instead of beating ourselves up a little bit, why don't we give ourselves a little bit of a pat on the back for crossing that finish line? And then what do? you bring about change. You make a choice and you start moving towards the next thing, right? Just keep ourselves busy in that process 100%. Okay, what does Eugene have to say? Um, thank you, Eugene. Eugene pops in all the time. It's really sweet that you welcome people when they pop into the live. I appreciate that. But thank you so much, everybody. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pick a powerful word here. This is just powerful words, 54 powerful words. We'll just go into whatever word that we grab. We'll just go into it for a couple of moments. Sometimes it works out. I've never had it not work out on me, right? But maybe today's the day. You never know, but I'll ride those waves in the moment. Okay, so let's just pick a card here. I hope everybody's having an amazing night. If you're just getting up and starting your day, I hope your day is absolutely amazing. And if you feel that you're dragging your butt a little bit, be kind to yourself, right? Maybe it's just a matter of making a different choice. Maybe it is just being kind to yourself and giving yourself that moment to enjoy and reflect on what you actually got right. I'm going to have to say, if my scribbles, I got 2 pages of wonderful things that have happened to me in the past just few months. Things that have helped me to keep that roof over my head, those little miracles that keep my family together, those things that allowed me to take this trip this week. I'm going to take off and have the most amazing little holiday for a week, and it's going to be fabulous. But sometimes we think of the struggles and we think about the things that don't go right, that we totally ignore all the amazing things that do go right. And I wrote a few down and 2 pages. So there must have been 20 of them here at least. And not just little things, they were like really great things that helped me smile during the course, that helped me recognize that I am making a little bit of movement, to also help me recognize that there is a little bit of entrepreneurship in me too, that I've still been managing to keep that roof over my head. And then also those little things, right, that just make me smile, make me grateful to be here, right? And to make me appreciate, to actually see what a little great little partnership that I have with myself, right? Be that example for others that it can be done. Okay, you guys, let's just pick a card here, just very quickly, and just give it a couple of minutes, and then we're going to call it a night, because as much as I did drag my butt a little bit today, I still managed to get some things done when I really didn't feel like getting things done. You guys, it always happens that way. Goals are the choices that just have to happen. Goals are the choice that just have to happen. They just have to happen, you guys. You know, and sometimes they don't work out the way that we want to, but there are always lessons in that. And when you set goals and you just work towards them, you know, they always work themselves out one way or another, right? I'm going away at the end of the week. I set that goal and I had no idea how it was going to happen. There was so much pushback, not just in my life, but in the people that I care about. And also, in my own talk back to myself, sometimes I think, what did you accomplish this year that made it so that you were deserving of taking this other, right, this magnificent little holiday that you're making for yourself, when so many people out there, right, are having so many big problems. And sometimes you have to look at how we talk to ourselves, And it was partly why I had to write my list down, just to show myself that, you know what, I am deserving, right? I am deserving in creating the best life for myself as I possibly can, because it makes it so that, right, I want to get up tomorrow, right? I want to hack away at it tomorrow because I saw the evidence that it could be done, right? And what happened today. And in truth, wasn't too much going on today, but I was kind of appreciative that I gave myself that opportunity to everything's going to be okay. Everything is more than okay. It really is, right? It really is. But we just all the time look at what's not going right. We had that word today, goals. Goals are the choices that just have to happen, right? They just have to happen. Sometimes they have to happen because we're putting that roof over our heads. Sometimes they have to happen because of our emotional and, right, mental well-being, that we have to have little goals in place, that it's what the that evidence, not just for others, but it's that evidence for ourselves that it can be done, right? And in the end, right, goals usually come with a little bit of reward when you accomplish them, right? It's like you when you're a little kid and you got your allowance on Saturday morning. Oh, I remember my 50 cents would get me a comic book, a chocolate bar, and a bottle of pop. 50 cents. See how that 50 cents, how far that goes now. But that sense of accomplishment when I got my, right, chores done and I earned my 50 cents, right? Set those goals. Set those goals and just move towards them, and you have no idea what you can accomplish that, right? Set your goals. Goals are the choices that just have to happen. Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer. I'm going to call it a night, get in my pajamas, finish my coffee here, and we're going to call it a night. And I bet you I'm going to get up tomorrow, and it's going to be a totally different day with a totally different agenda and a totally different feeling. And whether that's good or bad, I don't know. I'm just still moving towards those goals, right? Some of those goals are in place, some of those goals just kind of fall into your lap in the moment, and you just have to play with it then. Okay, you guys, have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for popping in.